since I've been able to take a video. I've had a pretty nutty life the last few weeks, so I thought I'd have a little fireside chat while I'm doing some carving. I've got to do some carving or I'm going to lose my mind. I've been working I don't know how many jobs lately, and yeah, I like to take some time. I usually carve on Sunday afternoons, and I'm going to take the time now to do that. Sit by the fire, talk about what's been going on, and yeah, just mellow out. It's been a good, busy, messy, wonderful couple of weeks, and yeah, so I just thought I'd unload for a little while. A couple weeks ago, I started dating a woman, and we're pretty crazy about each other, so that's been a big part of where I've been and what I've been up to. Her name is Natalie, and yeah, we've been having a good time for the last just over 2 weeks now, and like I said, I've been working a lot. I recently got kind of, I guess, promoted into a position with a lot more responsibility. I run youth crews in the summertime, youth conservation corps crews, and take them out and teach them how to work in the woods and do trail work and weeds work, and then there's a whole environmental ed component every day for 2 or 3 hours that I do. And I recently took on the position of crew coordinator for 3 islands instead of just the one that I did last year. So I have a lot more front-end work. The season doesn't even begin for 2 months, and I'm already hiring staff and doing interviews and doing all that stuff. So I've been running around a lot with that, and caretaking the property. Spring just sprung here like last week, so I've had a lot of spring cleaning work to do, and my pruning. I do a lot of orchard work for folks, for my clients, and I'm getting near the very tail end of pruning season, so I've been trying to beat the clock. And the thing is with spring is you don't know when it's going to come. There's like a 2-month window when you could be just about done. So I've just been busting my ass pretty much, and had an injured hand. I fell in Taekwondo 5-6 weeks ago now from about 10 feet up, landed right on the palm of my hand, and it was a graceful enough landing, but it's right where there's 5 bones that come together right there, and I landed right in the center of all of them. They all kind of splayed out and then came back together. I got it x-rayed the other day. It's not broken, but it's kept me, you know, even having to watch myself when I'm pruning and everything. I squeeze my hand all day with pruning and grasping tools and stuff. It doesn't seem to be too bad for my carving tools, but yeah. And then another big development is I learned that I have ADHD about a week and a half ago, and that has been a real development in my awareness of who I am and why I am the way I am in the world. And I gotta say, I'm like really kind of I guess almost excited about it. I've always had problems with, I have my own business. I have a permaculture design business. That's another thing I forgot to mention, is I've got all these clients doing that work as well. And yeah, I've been busy hopping. I've been on the edge of exhaustion for the last 2 or 3 weeks, and the adrenal fatigue thing has been very interesting for me because it's me, for one thing, and my business. I'm not a businessman. I'm just not the kind of guy who likes to sit down and look at paper or screens or you know, think in numbers and and all that stuff, doing the books. I can focus really, really, really well if I have something in my hands or I'm affecting the world kind of in the here and now. And that's apparently something I'm learning about people with ADHD. Is the name is really stupid because it's not about attention deficit. I think it was just named that way because people don't feel like they're being paid attention to when they put an ADHD person in a situation that no human should really be in, which is sitting in a classroom or at a desk or whatever, being talked at. And yeah, the truth of the matter is that I have a laser beam focus on projects when I get going on them, and I just feel like I have a kind of an inborn bullshit meter when it comes to doing paperwork and stuff that's not actually, to my mind, accomplishing work. It's like kind of the meta work that gets actual work accomplished, and my brain doesn't make that leap to this is important stuff to do in order to get all that other stuff that you're good at doing done, and that needs to be done. So yeah, it's been, I honest to God feel like it's been a lot more of a blessing than a curse, because another thing it helps me to do is take in nature, and that's something that I just don't see people able to do a very good job of anymore. We're so unable to take in anything that's subtle in the world anymore. And, when I'm out here, if a bird flies by, I know about it. And I know what bird it is. And I know about it probably as soon as I could hear it. I'm actually paying a lot more attention than most people are. It's not an attention deficit, it's like an attention overload. It's been, I have a really good sense of hearing. People don't know that about me because I'm always saying, huh? Because because I'm hearing everything. If I'm in a busy restaurant and somebody's talking with me, I'm hearing them, but I'm also hearing every other conversation within earshot, and filtering it is a difficulty for me. If I wanted to, I guess, look at it in that light. Another way to look at it is I have strengths that most people don't have, and I know there's cultures in the world that used to be, and maybe still are, that when you had somebody in your village, in your tribe or whatever, that had different abilities, they were different, they were whatever they were, different sexual orientation, they were autistic, they had ADHD, they were different in some way. They were really kind of highly regarded because they had a different view of God, the world, creativity, that nobody else had access to. And back in the day, that was a valuable thing that you didn't lightly toss aside because you had some fears of somebody being different, or they didn't fit into your defined box of what capable is. And yeah, I don't know. I've just always had my own reservations about public school systems and the work life that most people kind of put up with. And I'm going to take off another layer. I'm starting to cook in front of this fire here. And I think I don't know if part of it isn't that My dad has dyslexia, and I know that he grew up. Actually, this is actually a really interesting kind of corollary to my thing. When I was in the second grade, I got tested to see if I had ADHD, and or ADD as it was mostly called back then, and it was inconclusive. So I kind of went on with my life, and no big deal. And the other day, I was working at the computer, scheduling a bunch of interviews for some potential hirees, and man, about 5 minutes in, I was just ready to take my laptop and crumple it up into a little ball and then run naked into the forest. I just cannot do that kind of stuff without an extreme force of will. And what I just thought of is that my dad has dyslexia, and I've learned a little bit about it since learning that that's his problem. But he had to repeat the second grade because he couldn't read. He couldn't read well enough to go on to third grade. His eyesight was also horrible too. But he was told he had this disorder. The reality of the fact is, my dad is one of the most brilliant, especially capable people you'll ever know in your life. He can do anything. He's one of the most magnificent carpenters you'll ever be around. He just knows how to do stuff. He knows how to do stuff with his hands. He knows how to do stuff spatially. He's a really smart guy. And because he was told in the second grade that he wasn't, I think he believes that today, that he's not. And it's a shame because everybody knows otherwise. But I know it's affected his life, for these 55 odd years since. And that was him in the second grade. Me in the second grade, I got tested for something, and I feel like luckily they didn't tell me I had a disorder, or that I was broken, or that I was whatever. And I got to go on my merry way, and thank God I grew up the way I did, where I could go camping with my family all summer long, and my grandparents took me out hunting and fishing, and I got to be out in nature where the human brain evolved and is supposed to work. And I got to grow up fairly normal. I had mediocre grades all the way through college until I just dropped out of college because I was wearing out shoes because my leg was moving so much it was rubbing holes through the heel of my shoes on the chair I'd be sitting in. And yeah, but luckily I didn't have it in my head. I don't know if I'd have believed it anyway, that I was broken like my dad. And I'm 38 now, and I was able to go and test for myself what the likelihood if I had ADHD is, and I've been able to do my own research. We live in a world of computers and the internet, and I can actually find researchers who not only study ADHD but have ADHD and have a unique insight into it, and that's been really kind of amazing because a lot of this research has been finding that ADHD might not be a disorder. It might be an evolutionary adaptation to life once upon a time, to life in the woods, where you had to be a good hunter, and you had to be aware, and you had to be able to act immediately on information that is only just then immediately apparent. And that's how I am. I mean, I've saved people's lives because I noticed people drowning, and I've done search and rescue work, and I've done this kind of hero type stuff, I guess, and because it's how I think. And I remember once when I was in still in high school, I was at a 4-H horse thing, and this little girl who was, I don't know, probably in the 1st or 2nd grade, was trying to show a great big horse, and the horse panicked, and in the middle of a big arena, and I was the guy who leapt over the fence and grabbed the horse before she got trampled, and that's like the kind of person that ADHD people are. It's not it's not an inability to pay attention to something. It's paying attention to everything and being able to act on it immediately. And when you're put into a situation where you're forced to pay attention to something that's not immediately important, and you have to stay still through all of it, it turns you a little bit nuts. And I think that's where the hyperactivity comes in, because I'm not a hyperactive guy. I'm actually relaxed very well when I'm in a setting like this. And I gotta move away from this fire a little bit because I'm cooked on the right side. I'm gonna move the camera a skosh and see if we can't move my stool a little bit. Let's see here. But yeah, there's certain settings where that's exactly the right person you want to have on hand, and that's a position where somebody would be appreciated, and I have been appreciated in different roles when I was a park ranger, and let me just see if that is even pointed at me. That's a little better. And yeah, I've lived a super blessed life, and I don't know if that diagnosis when I was in the 2nd grade, had it been, yeah, you have ADHD, let's put you on Ritalin or Adderall or whatever the crap they use, whatever amphetamines they're going to pump into some little kid, I don't know how that would have affected me, not just biochemically, but you know, in self-esteem, and I'm a pretty damn capable guy. I feel like I can do just about anything, and I don't know that that would necessarily be the case if I was told that I had some disorder. So, yeah, so that's that. That's something I've been musing on quite a bit, and it kind of fits in with a lot of other life philosophies that I've always held, and yeah, I need to get that off my chest, I suppose, because I just know there's millions, something like 1 in 10 kids, I think, is diagnosed with ADHD these days by somebody who wants to call it a disorder instead of a strength, and it's a really bad culture you live in when they start thinking of differences as disorders instead of strengths and assets to the community. And when we can't find, instead of trying to find ways to make that way of being valuable, we look for ways to make it like, we got to find a cure for it, or we got to turn. I mean, I've taught a lot of kids. I've taught outdoor living skills to kids mostly for over 15 years, and I used to teach for the YMCA and have like 24 kids that I'd have to teach, and out in the woods. You know, you're not in a classroom setting. You don't have the control and the structure of 4 walls around you. You have a bunch of kids who are wild out in the woods, like kids should be, and I'd have them in the summer when a lot of parents would take their kids off of their Ritalin, and I watched these kids that were, you know, just fine all summer long, just the most vibrant, loving kids you could ever want to be around, and then maybe the last week or 2 of summer, they want to transition them back onto whatever drug they have them on so they can go to school. And it's like, the transformation is startling and sad. It's like children of the corn. That's not a overstatement. Just startling changes, and it always really rubbed me the wrong way. Especially when I'd see some kids where, you know, their parents were split up, and one of their parents was taking care of things through their diet. They're making sure they're not getting any red dye number 40 in their food, and you know, working hard to make sure that whatever stressors might be going on inside that kid biochemically weren't making it into their food, you know, like our government should be doing, and like food producers should be doing, instead of putting all the shit in our food that most people end up eating. And yeah, then that same child would switch parents for the week. You know, they'd be traded back and forth, and they'd go and stay with their dad, and I'm sure that has its own effect as well. And then they'd be off their diet when, you know, when they're staying with the other parent, and then they'd, you know, that it wouldn't be good anymore. There'd be a pronounced change. And you know, we just want to put labels on things and not really address, you know, what is going on. What is going on with people? Why do we have so many people with rheumatoid arthritis problems and digestive problems and gluten intolerances and this is and that's, while we're flooding our food supply with tens of thousands of different kinds of chemicals that, you know, largely go untested, and right into our bodies. And you know, we are what we eat. That's a fact. It's a fact. It's true. We can be no other. We can't be anything else. And yeah, so there's that. I'm railing now. I do that sometimes. Feels good, I guess. But yeah, life is good. Life is damned good, and I'm really happy with where I am and the life I've had and am moving towards every day, living with intention, and still got pretty big goals. Maybe not where I want to be in some ways at the age of 38, and that's a big part of how our world works today and how I work in it, and I understand that. But you know, I have some pretty unique strengths that I wouldn't trade for anything in the world, and I'm not going to. So don't expect to hear me getting on any drugs or anything like that to treat ADHD. But I'm really excited to have this knowledge of you know, the positions I've been. I used to be the parks manager for the county here, and I managed crews of people, all these vehicles, multiple parks, and I did that for a year. You know, 52 grand a year, all the benefits in the world. This is the perfect job in regards to, okay, I'm going to be able to buy a house, I'm going to be able to do this thing. And I couldn't do it. I did it for a year. I did a great job at it. We worked miracles. I mean, the parks I took care of, and I couldn't. I had to quit. It was, I think, it might be the first job I ever quit in my life, and it's because what had been advertised as a position, talking with people and doing work outside, was really me sitting in front of a computer, you know, at least 6 hours a day doing accounting and counting kayaks and people and whatnot. And I just didn't want to do that. It was like the devil had handed me this deal that if I gave away, you know, I don't know what, if I was willing to sit down in front of a computer all day, which I just, like I said, without an extreme force of will, I can't do, then I'd have everything I ever wanted, you know. And I mulled that one over for quite a few months before I walked away from it. It was one of the hardest things I ever did, and one of the best things I ever did. And yeah, so So that's that. I have a new girlfriend. Mentioned that earlier. Her name is Natalie. And what I'm doing right now is making her a ladle. I asked her if she wanted me to make her anything, and she didn't have a good soup ladle. So this is a piece of hazel that I cut off of a tree a few months ago for a client of mine in the village. And I've never carved hazel before. I'm really curious to see how it works out. It's definitely a really defined grain wood. So she wanted a ladle that's got kind of a deep bowl to it, you know, like the more upright style of ladle. She already has one of the more, you know, it's just more like a giant spoon. So I'm going to turn this into the bowl. You'd be surprised how much wood goes away, especially when you're working on these crooks. Here's another one here where these things come. It's just so much. The bark is a lot thicker there, and there's so much weird kind of wavy wood. You wouldn't be able to get this is at its widest extent, almost 4.5 inches across. You can't get a 2-inch wide ladle out of this. So it's tricky. It's tricky to do, and I'm hoping this one will not have to get narrowed down much more. But you can see all this bark I still have to take out of here, and I'm going to probably take the saw and cut across here again, and then I'm going to leave a little hook right up here. I'm going to carve this in here and give it a nice graceful line, and leave that hook so that when you put your ladle in the pot, it doesn't fall in and land in the soup like is so common to do and is really annoying. So yeah, but Natalie is a pretty special person, and we've been spending all of our extra free time and energy together, and connecting really well. I don't know that I've ever connected quite so well with somebody before. I've been in quite a few relationships, I guess you could say. I'm 38 years old and I'm single. I've been married once, and you know, communication is definitely I don't know, communicating with somebody like me, I guess, is something interesting. I'm a pretty open guy, and I feel like I do that pretty well, but I don't know. I just want the best for me, for whoever I'm with, and willing to work on that for years if need be. But if it's not there, it's not there, and it seems to be there right now. So I'm really excited about that. Yeah, I don't know what else all to say about that. But I'm just going to keep working on this ladle here, I think, and hopefully my hand will let me keep going. And yeah, I think this thing is still recording. So there's still a heck of a lot of work to do this, obviously, so I'm going to start whacking on it. I'm going to start with the saw again. What the heck was that noise? That was very odd. Let's see, I think I want to cut this in like that. So I just moved my hand from here to here after I saw, whenever you cut it a diagonal to grain with a saw, the teeth want to get caught in the grain and they'll slide sideways, and the saw will pop out right onto your hand, and these things are made to draw blood more than they are to cut through wood. And let me get this out of my way. So I moved my hand over. When you're a woodworker, and I've heard every carpenter and woodworker, carver I've ever known say this, there's a little voice in your head that's going to tell you just before you get hurt that you're going to get hurt. Every damn time. And I know it's true. I've got a couple of little specks on the back of my arm from this saw just 2 or 3 days ago from when I was pruning a tree, and I'm like, this is a little bit out. And sure enough, it was just a light tap, but I was bleeding, you know, instantly. And if you're gonna work with sharp tools, you need to train that voice in your head to not be little, to be like a loud scream. Because if you stop paying attention to it, you're going to put yourself in the emergency room in a big hurry. And particularly if you're working in the inside of your thighs here, like I have this thing out in front of me a little bit, so that if I slip in with a tool, it's not coming in and cutting a femoral artery. Another way to do that is to work to the outside. If you're using, a knife, working out like this instead of like this. This is bad news. Never do that. Work out here. Put your elbows on your knees. Work out in front of you, but you stay out of this place. It's called the triangle of death. Your femoral arteries are about as thick as your thumb, and it's a bad place to get a cut, because you'll be dead immediately. But at any rate,